welcome Professor Ajay Pratap from the Banaras Hindu University, one of the oldest universities of India,
Mm.
to say a few words about his passion for cave paintings. He will speak on the subject. Professor Ajay Pratap.
Well, thank you very much, madam. And it's slightly disappointing that the scheduled presentation is not here because, being a teacher by profession, certainly preparation counts for a lot. And both the presentations of this morning by Dr. Pariti and Dr. Bose were qualify as presentations of that kind, which are very well prepared. So, how to actually discuss a style of painting which prevails in the Vindhyas without showing some images? And then again, it might lead to unnecessary verbosity because they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. So, I'll just be very brief in just introducing the subject, which is that as on the being on the user end of museums. Now, I've got one paper already in Peter Stone and Brian Molyneux's Heritage Museums and Education, published by Routledge in the World One Archaeology series, which is the title for the publications of the World Archaeological Congress. So that was a co-authored paper with Professor K.N. Momin, formerly of the Baroda Museum, and he was then teaching at the University of Ibadan, Nigeria. And I was working as a research officer in charge of the Adidrisha Gallery at the Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts, which was just mentioned. So we collaborated on one paper. But subsequently, I've been doing fieldwork for documenting rock paintings in the Eastern Vindhyas, an area not really covered substantially in terms of either documentation or exploration for new sites. Now, rock paintings are very popular throughout the country, and almost all the states here have got hundreds of caves which are still unexplored, and you know, there's a lot of visitorship over there. We have visited Bhimbetka and many other sites in Chambal Valley. And there are so many visitors, both rural and urban. That's very heartening to see this passion. But what I do find as a teacher of prehistory and early Indian history, ancient history, which is worth mentioning, is that there's a disjunct in our museums and therefore in the displays between the classical culture as such, which is Mauryan period onwards to the Gupta and so on, and our prehistory. So it really works out that our Indian prehistory, which is really logically the first step, I mean, the entire historical picture of the history of India is incomplete until the prehistory of the country is also represented. But actually, it is totally missing. And this is shocking, actually. Having been in the field almost 40 years, I find that we have persisted with this colonial construction of our past, in which the earliest part of our history was for political, economic, or socio-economic, or political, socio-political reasons, always deleted. And with the benefit of research being done at our department by other teachers who are working amongst, for instance, in the diaspora and subjects of indentured labor, just to put it in a nutshell, it works out that British opinions of forest dwellers in this country were low because they thought that our coolies and the coolies of the empire is a famous work authored by our colleague Dr. Ashutosh Kumar. And there are others, Kaushik Ghosh's article in the Subaltern History series, I think volume 12, which works on, which discusses aboriginality and market for aboriginality, that British perceptions of our forest areas and the rock art and the prehistory, what have you, were all colored by this sense of political economy in sort of in not paying any attention to it. After all, that is the area from which the coolies of the empire were derived, and all kinds of indentured labor, which went to all the sugar colonies, including Australia, Fiji, Suriname, and all the other colonies, so that their history was not worth discussing. Now, there is nothing else that can really account for why the prehistoric past of India should be deleted to this day from our museums, from a substantial representation, but that it appeals to common sense that it should be there because it is our own prehistory. How does it work out that it actually is not represented? Is because the British perceived it as an anomaly, and not only that, they went one step further and constructed a fictitious past for us, which is the whole concept of the Aryan. Now, I understand from the work of one of our former vice chancellors at this university, Dr. Lalji Singh, who got a Padma Shri for his discovery of the common Indian or DNA or the common Indian DNA signature in the majority of the Indian population, that there is no genetic sort of difference there is no genetic difference between various caste groups or even castes and tribes, that on the basis of over 100 samples taken from various caste groups following Kumar Suresh Singh's model of people of India, and which is expounded in his 28-volume series called People of India, that there is no genetic difference in terms of the Indian population, whether we are in a tribal area or in a caste area. So it's almost funny that we have decided for ourselves, following the old colonial model, that actually the tribes of this India are probably not Indian. That is the implication. Or that they are in no way connected with the other populations that were subsumed under the fictitious sort of lineage theory as having descended from the Aryans, who were also actually the first cousins, I suppose, of the British. So it is for these reasons, I think, that Indian prehistory gets deleted from our museums, because we think the prehistory actually belongs to somebody else, some alien sort of population, whereas this is actually a blind spot, because it is our own prehistory. And we have, after all, if we share genetic signatures with tribal populations, then the obvious answer is we have descended from that stock. So this needs to be paid attention to, because as things stand, I do not think the representation of Indian prehistory is up to the mark or anything near it, so far as the Indian sort of museum scenario is concerned. So basically the problem, I was just thinking about it because I was invited to just fill in with a few words of this subject, which I think I've done already. So it really divides itself into three problems for those who would wish to consider it. First, why adequate representation of Indian prehistory does not exist in Indian museums, barring, say, the Indian Museum at Kolkata, and then smaller new museums like Sharma Center for Heritage Research in Chennai, and some of the other older museums. They have substantial prehistory collections, but how much of that is displayed is, of course, the problem. The second problem is, why is Indian prehistory, our own history of the Indian population when we were in the Mesolithic or Upper Paleolithic and Mesolithic, and then in the Neolithic, why isn't that seen as an important bit of history? But it is always seen as anthropology, whatever form. So the other problem is, why is it seen as an anthropological and not a historical subject? Again, this loops back into the urban population seeing itself as descendants of Aryans, which is a totally fake theory. It is not absolved genetically. It is not absolved in terms of linguistics and languages. And it is not absolved in terms of cultural material. There is no distinct cultural material. I could remind you that the earliest Vedic layers with the painted gray ware actually happened in many parts of the Ganga Yamuna Doab just above the post-urban Harappan. So there is no break in layer which would signify that early Vedic age populations came from somewhere else. And this is the salient conclusion of a recent project between Cambridge University and Banaras Hindu University Department of Archaeology, Dr. Cameron Petrie and Dr. Ravindra Singh. They explored the site called, excavated the site called Alamgir, next to the Hindon River, where there is no break in layers between the post-urban Harappan and the early Vedic, leading to the conclusion that the difference in material culture, such as we see, is not because of population shifts, but because change in the environment, and the same changes that cause the decline in the mature Harappan or urban Harappan are the ones that account for depleted material culture of the early Vedic age. And then finally, it would lead to the question, uh, why can't we see the forest-based populations complete with their fantastic material cultures and rock painting as our ancestors? Thirdly, how can this situation be remedied? Now, the problem is not that there is no material. There have been projects that are sanctioned by UGC and great amounts of money reach the universities. And Andhra Pradesh state itself, Telangana, has got so much rock art. And, I could mention over half a dozen people or dozen people who have done outstanding work. Orissa and the Northeast and most parts of the country, they have reported not only Ashulian cultures and the work of Professor K. Badaya in Shurapur Doab, and he's actually another one of our Padma Shri winners for his work on Indian prehistory. This scarcely finds a representation in the museums, and that is the remedy, is to actually see our prehistoric past as our past, and therefore bring out from all the storehouses, all the prehistoric collections, the Brucewood collection, the Carlisle collection, now all the other collections that are happening contemporarily also. So that is the remedy. And just to introduce on to the public that these are actually representations of early life, Indian life on the subcontinent. So I would rest it over there and wish you all a happy International Museums Day. And thank you. Thanks very much.
After listening to your presentation, though you had very little notice, I am really moved. This is a question I have been asking, that when we come to the tribals, we treat it as a separate subject. Why didn't we include it in our school syllabus? Why didn't we include it in our post graduation and graduation syllabus? Why are we talking about it as if, like you said, they are some kind of a weird species? We all are tribals. If our history and our DNA is examined, all of us are tribals. We don't have to sit on a higher platform and point out and say they are tribals. No, this is very important point, Mr. Ajay Pratap, you have made. And secondly, when I think you should have spoken for a little longer. My thirst for your kind of knowledge has not been quenched. It asks for another presentation totally on prehistoric caves in India. See, we
Yes.
have taken Bhimbetka to the world heritage, and we believe that whatever is inscribed by UNESCO is world heritage. We have much more important monuments, much more important sites, archaeological sites, non-archaeological sites. I mean, which are not protected. You see, during my stint of Director of Archaeology and Museums, Aruna Pariti has presented the British residency. It was me who took it for protection. It was me who suggested that this monument needs to be protected. Not because it was a residency and it was a colonial structure, it's a Palladian structure, which was very common to all the colonies of the English, but because it had a lot of history to it. And in fact, the all of us say that, built, or it was always designed by the British, but when it was built, the finances came, it was always from the Indians. For example, the Victoria Memorial Hall in Kolkata, built by Curzon, we say, it was his idea, but the finances came from the zamindars. Totally, it's a total financial investment, like a mutual fund investment of the Indian zamindaris section of Bengal. So, similarly, should we take up this study, Professor, and do something about it further to include it in museums? I think this is another major call we should take of today's proceedings. Like Anita has said, that it's a therapy. So, we should include this in psychological studies which take place. We should include this in philosophy also, and let us see how we take this further. Is
Can I
Professor
say
there?
something?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
One thing.
sure, sure.
Yeah. I just in this
Thank
case,
you.
yeah. If sir,
I
can I
wanted
say?
to, yeah. I wanted to mention, while thanking you for inviting me to join this wonderful discussion, and lovely papers by Professor Anita Bose and Professor Pariti, that you're absolutely right that it has to be a government initiative in the sense that the museum to direct the museums to bring out the prehistory collection. And I think it has tremendous educative value. I was in Chiang Mai University, Professor Bose, in November, uh, rather Chiang Mai, in November 22, and I had a chance to see the Chiang Mai National Museum,
Yes.
and the priestly collections were very fascinating. And they have put it right beside their classical history and the state formation and post-state formation history.
Yes, 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 yes.
And
That's
then,
why I,
yeah, wait a minute, wait a minute. The point is that in Thailand is about one-fifth the size of India. Okay. And but Indian tourism accounts or heritage tourism accounts for only 5% of our GDP. But in Thailand, it is surprising, it is 13% of their GDP comes from tourism. So that's why. Yes, please.
Anita, you wanted
yes,
to
sir.
say?
Yeah, yes, sir. That's very true that they have a very strong tourism. That's a different thing, definitely. But what I surprised that it's a so small country. I mean, इंडिया का तरफ से देखेंगे तो ये एक छोटा देश ही है. But they have that passion to maintain. I mean, उन लोगों के इतने सारे जो national museum है. It's like if you are staying in Bijapur, then you have a small museum for Bijapur. I mean, there are very small places ना. अब बंगाल का कोई भी state लेके, I mean, कोई भी province लेके वो लोग एक बना देते हैं because for protecting that history. That's a different thing. I just want to say that Kadareshwari ma'am, you please do something on the prehistory also, because when I came here first and joined the museum, I always listened that everything is coming from Khmer. Khmer, and those things. And then I think that those Khmer people are very much influenced by the Indian thing. Because the Shivas and the all those Vishnus and all the Angkor Wat is actually a Vishnu temple. The largest one, the biggest one, the Vishnu temple. So then it is connected with the, I mean, who are as anthropology, they can connect it more in a good way. But somehow those Khmer people is connected the eastern part of India. Okay, so they actually it is coming. Buddha, Lord Buddha, he is being from India. It is not like that he came through the Sri Lanka. That means he is a Sri Lankan. He was an Indian first. But we all, somehow we are very much happy to the others' direction. अच्छा वो लोग जो बोल दिए हैं, then it is final. It's not from me. But we should do something. In a Dharavati period में pre-history में we have some, that skeleton. And I saw they all are wearing the bangles, just like Gujarati people, till wearing the lots of white bangles here and here. The Rajasthani people also. The women from the rural Rajasthan, they still do that thing. So here the skeletons are wearing the same thing. Same thing. And that is also made by shakha or cone cell. What you said in Bengali, shakha. So there are so many things we have to be focused. It is not only like the Taj Mahal or something. India has so many things, and India should be focused on that. And I just 1 minute I will end. 2 visitors came from Mexico. So in my guiding, and after the guiding, they waiting for me, and they said that, ma'am, can we say something? So I said, yes, tell me, because it is our, the favorite subject. We can talk and talk and talk. So they asked me that, ma'am, we are very happy to see that India, till after so many attack, after so many, that the foreign influence, India still have your own culture, own heritage, and Thailand also protect that. But as a Maya, their ancestor was Maya people, but they convert through the Spanish. So they are now Christian. But inside, that young boy told me that I remember in my whole life that we don't have any identity, but India have their identity. So I will request to the all young generation, don't be sad. We should be very proud for our culture. That is the main important thing. That ये अगर आपका अंदर होगा ना, proudness for your country, then कोई भी चीज आपको बहुत अच्छे तरीके से present कर सकते हो. So that day that boy told me that you have everything. आपका हिंदुइज्म भी है, आपका मन का जो भी है आप पालन कर सकते हो, but when Spanish came, they demolished everything. We cannot protect anything. So I know my ancestor is Maya. I know all those pyramids made by them, but I cannot say that I am a Maya. I have to say that I am a Christian, I am a Spanish. So
That's
this
very
is the
sad.
thing.
Very sad.
This
Very
is
sad.
the thing. We have to be proud for our culture and heritage, and we
Yes,
have to
yes.
do more and more this type of, that workshop conference, and it should be coming to something fruitful out.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
So, Mera Bharat Mahan. Okay. With that
It
note,
should
we
be.
can.
It
You
should
can't. You
be.
can't conclude. You can go on
Right.
talking, like you said. We are so proud of our culture. I am very.
Mhm.
I was in this field for almost 35 years, and I've done my best. But then the
Mhm.
best is not always suitable to everybody. So you
No,
need to do more. Yeah, you need to do more.